Morning everyone. Are we live? Let's get the live chat up. Oops. Okay, we're live. Good morning. There's a few people already here waiting. King George V is just strolling into the collection room. George, come on. Okay. George Aitken. Hi George, how you doing? Outdoor Flame. Good morning, sir. Good morning, Outdoor Flame. I don't think I've seen you on here before, so hello. Welcome. George, stay away from that camera tripod. Cats. Alright guys, we're here today to talk about the Coleco Rambo and the Force of Freedom toy line. I've got the Force of Freedom guys here. I've got the Savage guys on the shelf behind me, so couldn't fit everything on the table, but I can easily sort of reach over and pick. George! Out! Go! Sorry, Carl. George, he's rubbing his chin on the camera tripod. It's making the camera shake. Go on, go and see Mum. Go see Mrs. Analog Toys. Okay. No, not you, George Aitken. George Aitken said, okay, I'm going. No, not you. We're a couple of minutes early. It's actually bang on. It's 7 a.m. here now, so it should be 11 p.m. in the UK and 6 p.m. on the east coast of the States. Just before we get started, so my good brother Joseph, who normally moderates these live streams, he's not available today because it's his son Tor's 5th birthday. So Tor's, happy birthday from Tony and the Analog Toys Army. All right, happy birthday, mate. I hope you have a great day. And congrats on the Tila action figure for your birthday. Bernie Toys, good night from Spain. Andy Kaufman from Albuquerque. I watched there was a UFC in Albuquerque last week, I think. I watched it. Mr. Gabotto, hello from a windy UK. Michael Schaefer says, happy birthday, Toys. Yeah, happy birthday, Tours. Outdoor Flame, where can I get a shirt like yours? If you scroll down below the video in YouTube, you'll see underneath the video description you can buy Analog Toys merchandise, and we've got a variety of t-shirts, hoodies. They're not all Analog Toys ones. I've got an Action Man Space Ranger one on there, got an Action Man tee. I'm probably looking to do some Action Force t-shirts and stuff in the future. So yeah, Analog Toys merchandise can be purchased right below these videos. Christian Warner, cheers from Boston. Nice to see you. I love the Boston accent, although I don't hear the accent when you type in the live stream. But John Kenny says, Tony, you need to bring along a few toy-sized body bags. Yes, I do. We're going to need a lot of body bags. Hello from Massachusetts. Nice to see you, Edward. Hey, Gaz. I think before we get stuck into the Rambo stuff, there's a bit of toy news that's causing a lot of buzz at the moment, and I want to sort of discuss that briefly. George! You cat. Go on. Alright, so there's a bit of toy news coming out of the latest New York Toy Fair from Hasbro that everyone's sort of talking about at the moment, so I just wanted to weigh in on that. So I've mentioned a number of times in live streams and I think other videos that I've been really excited for a sort of 6-inch Marvel Classics or Marvel Legends style G.I. Joe figures. And we're finally getting them. Obviously, we've got the Snake Eyes Origin movie coming out, I think, later this year or early next year. I don't remember exactly. The latest rumour that I just read very recently is that they believe that the Snake Eyes trailer is going to premiere at Toy Fair, so that's pretty exciting. AWG says George is playing up because last time he got screen time. He can have screen time again if he jumps up here. I don't want him bumping the camera tripod. John Kenny says, do these toys mean more to you with Rambo being a veteran as yourself? It's a complicated question, I suppose, because this character and these toys meant a lot to me long before I ever joined the military. So I certainly, looking back at a movie like First Blood, through the lens of my life experience, I have a newfound appreciation for the way that character was portrayed. Yeah, sorry. We were talking very quickly about the 6-inch G.I. Joe figures. I think they're calling it the G.I. Joe Classified Series. So a few days ago, a number of pictures dropped online of a 12-inch Snake Eyes, which really looks like very similar to Snake Eyes version 2, the figure from the original 80s G.I. Joe toy line. And I think they did a fantastic job on that 6-inch figure. It looks great. There's been a lot of photos showing the different action poses. It comes with a lot of accessories. I believe this one may be an exclusive. I'm sure we'll get a non-exclusive version, maybe with a few less accessories. That looks really good. Unfortunately, I've also seen photos this morning, I think maybe last night, no, this morning, of the other 3 6-inch figures that they're releasing in the first wave, and that is Roadblock, Duke, and Scarlet. And I've got to say, guys, I'm not really impressed with those figures. Duke isn't too bad, but Roadblock and Scarlet, I think they really missed the mark there. I've been really excited for a 6-inch G.I. Joe line for some time now. And I think Hasbro's going to miss the mark on this one. If they were all like Snake Eyes, you know, a slight upgrade to the original, but really followed the original sort of aesthetic. Well, like you take the Roadblock figure, and apologies guys, like if I was making an edited video, I could put the images up on the screen, but I can't do that in a live stream. JoeFan22 says he's already ordered 3 Snake Eyes. Okay. Yeah, Snake Eyes does look fantastic. Chris says, greetings from the Netherlands. Great channel, Tony. Thank you very much, Chris. Yeah, Snake Eyes does look excellent, but like Roadblock, I don't think the figure's too bad, but I just can't wrap my head around this bizarre weapon that they've given him. Like, why doesn't he just have Marduce? You know, he should have Marduce. He should have the Browning 50 caliber machine gun. Scarlet, I'm not too sure if I'm keen on the colour palette they've used for the figure. I think they should have gone with the original sort of colour design. As I said, Duke isn't too bad, but we'll see. John Kenny, did any of Grace's family serve in Vietnam as many Thai soldiers fought over there? I don't believe so, John, no. Alright, let's start talking about the Rambo and the Force of Freedom toy line. So I believe this came out in 1986 in the States. I don't think we started to get this toy line in the UK until around 1987. And when I first saw these on toy store shelves in the UK, my mind was blown because, as I said, I must have watched Rambo first. But let me try and remember exactly how this played out in childhood. So my brother is 6 years older. So in the mid-80s, I was too young to go to the cinema and watch movies like Rambo First Blood Part 2. But I remember my brother went to see it and he came home and he was raving about this movie. The second installment, Rambo First Blood Part 2, where he's at the start of the movie, he's in prison. Troutman sort of cuts a deal with the government to get him out of prison, provided that he does a covert mission back into Vietnam to look for POWs after the war. Yeah, so my brother, he watched this movie in the cinema and he came home and he was raving about this movie. I was too young to be able to go and see it. But my dad said, oh, look, they're showing, I think they were showing the original one on TV like later that week. And it was on late at night. I wasn't able to stay up that late to watch it. But my dad recorded onto a VHS cassette for me the original First Blood. So I think I watched First Blood the first time in 1985. And it became my favourite movie. It was, you know, rewatched every Saturday morning. Me and my sister used to come down in the living room on a Saturday morning in our house in the UK. And we were always fighting over the VHS player and who could watch what. And I always wanted to watch Rambo First Blood, or it was just called First Blood. And my sister wanted to watch either Dirty Dancing, or one of her other favourite films. So we would always argue over that. But yeah, Saturday mornings we would just watch and rewatch these video cassettes, and that video cassette of First Blood, the original, it's long gone now, but that thing that took a hiding, that VHS cassette. It was watched so many times. King Eric the Great the First says, there's a great Australian film called The Odd Angry Shot. It's about a group of Australian SAS soldiers and their experiences in Vietnam. Yes, King Eric, I am very, very familiar with that movie. It was a made-for-TV film, I believe, in the early 80s. It was made on a very small budget. I believe it was filmed in Queensland, but it is a great film. It's almost a black comedy about, you know, how the Australian soldiers coped with a year's life in Vietnam. It's a great movie. I have it on DVD. I've watched it many, many times. Definitely worth a watch if you're interested in Vietnam War films. JoeFan22 says, I love the six-wheeler. Yeah, this is the Force of Freedom Defender 6x6 Jeep. I got that, I believe, for Christmas in 87 or maybe a birthday in 88. I don't remember exactly. But I absolutely love that toy. It's fantastic. The TOW missile launcher on the top actually has some spring-loaded missiles with rubber tips on them. They're quite large missiles, and they actually do pack quite a punch for a spring-loaded toy weapon. Zonista Studios, that's Kevin Clark. Nice to see you. Hi Tony, great job and good questions. I love these live. Awesome. Kevin Clark, he won one of the prizes in the raffle the other week. Was it 2 weeks ago we did that? And it just arrived a couple of days ago in the mail. So I'm very pleased that that arrived safe and sound. Kevin Kelly, ahoy Tony, nice to see you. Brick Mantooth. I believe Marty Abrams from Mego was involved in the development as a toy line. Oh, awesome. So Marty Abrams, the Mego legend, Brick Mantooth, saying he believes he had some involvement in the development of the Coleco toy line. So when I first saw these on toy store shelves in the UK, I had no idea that this was actually linked to an animated cartoon. For the life of me, the name of the animation company escapes me now. But yeah, they took, so at the time, First Blood and Rambo First Blood Part 2 had been released. The character had become very, very popular in the 80s. So Coleco sort of started a toy line, and in conjunction with that was an animated cartoon called Rambo and the Force of Freedom. I was aware of the Force of Freedom team and the storyline, because in the UK we did get there was a lot of storybooks. There was a lot of Rambo merchandise around at that time, I believe, because I remember having sticker books, colouring books, storybooks with, like, the read-along cassettes. I had a number of those. I think one of them was like Trouble on the Suez Canal, and I even remember a few of the names of these read-along cassettes. But I never actually watched the cartoon until many, many years later in life. So when I first saw these in toy stores, I just thought they were toys from the Rambo movie, but then I started to sort of piece it together. So I believe a year or two prior to this coming out, Coleco released a different line called Sectars, where the figures were a similar scale, similar construction, in this sort of fantasy world where these characters were sort of a cross between, they were sort of insect-themed knights who would fly around on big dragonflies and things like that, and find each other. I don't know the full story of Sectars. I've never really looked too much into it. But that line was pretty much a commercial flop. So when they went on to make the Rambo toy line, they copied the action figure design and the scale. Certainly the way the figures are articulated with the ball joints at the hips and stuff like that. So Coleco was also known for a lot of computer game type stuff in the 80s, like ColecoVision and things like that. So, Ruby Spears. Yes, Ruby Spears was the animation company. That's it. Action Man Customs. The SAS key figure arrived today too. That's awesome, mate. I hope you enjoy it. Please send me a photograph of yourself with it, or just with that in your collection or whatever. If you don't want me to share it, that's fine. But just for my own sort of personal records, I suppose. I'd love to see a photo of that figure in your collection. John Kenny, do you have any of the annuals? I don't have any of the annuals now, but I had the Rambo annuals when I was a kid. When I was a kid, I had a lot of the Rambo merchandise. As I said, all the books, the read-along cassettes. And funnily enough, when I was a kid, I had the entire Savage line from the first wave. I know you guys can't see. Oh, you can see all of them. So from what's that? Your right to my left, we've got Black Dragon, Gripper, Mad Dog, Sergeant Havoc, General Warhawk, and Nomad. And at the back there, carded, we've got Gripper, and that carded Gripper was very kindly gifted to the channel by Michael Mercy, so a big shout out to him. We've got Sergeant Havoc carded. I've actually got a photograph of me around 1987-88, opening this up on Christmas morning. And then we've got a carded Nomad there. Up the top, Colonel Troutman. So when I was a kid, I had all 6 of the Savage characters, but from the Force of Freedom, all I had was the basic Rambo figure, which I used to refer to as, Rambo from Rambo Part 2, or First Blood Part 2. So the only figures I had were Rambo and Colonel Troutman. Colonel Troutman's excellent. His, let's give you a good look. His face sculpt is actually a spot-on likeness for the actor Richard Crenna. He comes with a lot of accessories. He's got a belt-fed machine gun. He's got a very realistic-looking M16 rifle. He's got a pistol belt with a Colt 45. He's got an around-the-shoulder strap that carries a dagger, and he also carries a walkie-talkie radio. Timothy Ward, good to see you here, man. Fantastic likeness. Yes, it is. Both of them actually are fantastic likenesses. So when I was a kid, they were the only 2 figures I had from the Force of Freedom toy line, and I think I was never really interested in Turbo. He's probably the biggest letdown of the entire toy line. If you a lot of the figures had these weird motorized backpacks, so I don't really get why, but if you look at Turbo, his action feature was to go to the hair salon and have the hairdryer put over his head. I was never interested in getting Turbo. I was really keen on getting White Dragon, like every kid in the 80s was interested in ninjas, but I do prefer the Black Dragon figure. I did really want to get Cat, because to me it was a clear representation of the female Vietnamese agent who assists Rambo in the movie, in Part 2. But I think when I was, I couldn't get all of the figures for birthday and Christmas that year, and I think I sort of focused on the bad guys, mainly because the character of Rambo, he was always this one-man army. You had to have Colonel Troutman as his commanding officer, but I suppose the way I played with Rambo, it was always Rambo up against this big army. That's why I wanted to get the Savage guys first, so he had the most people to fight. He didn't really need people to help him. King Eric says, it's also funny to me in the films that Colonel Troutman was so helpless. He trained Rambo. Glad they made him better for the cartoon. I wouldn't call him helpless. He was probably more strung by, I don't know, military bureaucracy or something. So I've got the, if I can reach it. So I have the DVD trilogy here of all the Rambo films. I've actually got another special edition of First Blood as well, which features all the deleted scenes. I think this might feature the deleted scenes as well. But I certainly have a special edition of First Blood, not the other 2 movies. I also have a steel case edition of the movie that was just called Rambo, which was basically Rambo Part 4. I think this was a quite underrated edition. And then in my recent holiday to Thailand in, what was that, September last year, I went to see the latest Rambo movie. What do they call it? Last Blood. And I did not like it at all. It wasn't the character as I knew him. It was just, I actually came out of the cinema not really knowing what the hell I'd just seen. So Michael Schaefer's asking, what did I think of Last Blood? There, I don't think it was a bad movie to me. I watched it and I was like, it just didn't feel like a Rambo movie. It was bizarre. I came out of that movie confused as to what I just watched. So, Edward Holbrook, I have the NECA Rambo, the one with the Force of Freedom box art. Yeah, that's a pretty cool figure. I was probably tempted to pick that up, but because I've actually got the originals, that's probably why I never picked it up. So, Action Man Customs, yeah. Maybe the movie should have been called Rambo Last Cash Grab, not Last Blood. That's a pretty good name. I like that. So, yeah, so when I was a kid, I didn't have this figure, which was referred to as Firepower Rambo. I was very tempted to get him, but I always looked at these when I was a kid and went, right, that's Rambo from First Blood Part 2, and that's Rambo from First Blood. I never sort of called them Rambo and Firepower Rambo, so... George Aitken, did you get any of the weapon packs for this range? Yes, I did. There was, I believe there was only one... yeah, so there was one carded... one carded set of just, you know, loose weapons where you get spare AKs, but then there was a lot of other sets like you could get a small mortar, you could get a tripod mounted 50 caliber machine gun. There was a variety of those. I had a few as a kid, I don't remember which ones, and I think in the collection now I've got the 50 caliber machine gun and the mortar. Damon says, love the channel, here from Kitchener, Ontario, Canada. Same as Michael Mercy. Birth home of David Morrell. Okay, I didn't know David Morrell was a Canadian. I do know the story behind how he sort of wrote the novel First Blood. So David Morrell was not a veteran himself. I believe he was a college lecturer in the early 70s, and at the time there was obviously a lot of veterans returning from Vietnam who, you know, he was sort of not studying, but he was observing these veterans when they were returning to the States and, you know, going into some sort of college education, and just how troubled they were by the experience they'd been through in Vietnam, and that's sort of what inspired him to write the novel. John P. Hopefully Stallone is done with Rambo. Yeah, well, I was hoping that Harrison Ford was done with Indiana Jones, but he's not. They start filming soon, so I hope that movie's good. I don't... I wish they weren't making it, but perhaps they want to redeem themselves for the Crystal Skull. Hopefully they do. I really hope it's successful. I do not wish them any bad luck. When you're pushed, killing is as easy as breathing. That's right, Andy. That's right. Which film was that in? That was Rambo 4, wasn't it? George Aitken, filming the new Batman movie next to my work. Oh, really? George, are they filming the new Batman movie in Scotland, or parts of it in Scotland, are they? I didn't know that. That's the one with that fella from Twilight as Batman. Yeah, okay, we'll see how that goes. Again, I hope that's a good movie. I love Batman. Action Man Customs, have you seen 1917? No, I haven't. The thing is, where I live in Port Hedland, it's a remote town. We don't have a proper cinema here. What we do is we have a dramatic arts theatre at the high school where my son goes, and they have a large projector screen there. So they do show movies on Friday and Saturday nights, but unfortunately we get them several weeks after they're released internationally, normally about 6 to 8 weeks afterwards. And often, unless it's a really popular movie like, you know, Avengers Endgame, they may only show the movie once. And if I miss that one showing, that's it. I really wanted to see it when I was down in Perth a couple of weeks ago. I took my son to see The Rise of Skywalker. Probably should have gone to see 1917 instead, because The Rise of Skywalker was terrible. And yeah, we were only down in Perth for 10 days. It was, you know, we're on holiday, catching up with family. We got very busy, and I didn't get a chance to watch 1917. Planning getting any more Sideshow G.I. Joes? No. So Robert Justafan's asking me about the Sideshow G.I. Joes. Unless I find another one for 82 US bucks, I probably won't. And the fact that they, you know, the line ended, what was it, about 5-6 years ago. They're very collectible now. I would really like... I think Zartan looks incredible. Firefly is probably my favourite. But when you see that up for sale on eBay, it goes for like 350 US, about 250 American. That's far too much for me to spend on Sideshow. I'd rather spend it on Action Force or Action Man or something like that, on some vintage stuff. Michael Schaefer said, did you see the pictures of the Retro Collection Snowspeeder Luke? Yes, I did. I only saw a few photos briefly this morning. I couldn't take a long look because I was getting everything set up for the live stream. Are they selling that with a board game like they did with Tarkin in the first wave? Because if they do, that's just a shameless cash grab again. I also wasn't too impressed with the figure. I think he should have a removable helmet, a bit like, you know, I know they weren't doing removable helmets during the Empire line, but there's something about the yellow visor over the eyes on the helmet. That sculpt just doesn't look right. Potentially that's just a prototype that we're seeing, and the final product may look a bit different. But yeah, I don't know. An odd choice. Like, I know they didn't make a specific Empire Strikes Back version of Luke in his pilot gear, his X-wing gear. I don't know they didn't make an Empire Strikes Back version back in the day, but sort of when they did Tarkin was it last year, the year before? That was a figure that was never ever released. We'd got different versions of it, so I think it would have been a better idea for Hasbro to deliver us a figure that we'd never seen before. There are plenty to choose from in the Star Wars universe, figures that were never released by Kenner, or in the original line I'm talking about. King Eric, Indiana Jones 5 is going to be called Indiana Jones and the Quest for the Prune Juice. Yeah. Chris is asking, what toy line is missing in your collection and high on your wish list? Chris, are you talking about an entire toy line? I suppose I'm really, really keen on starting to collect the real Ghostbusters. I picked up a very nice Peter Venkman figure the other day with his oh my god, my mind's terrible this morning. What are they called, the Ghostbusters backpacks? Someone tell me in the comments. Raiders of the Lost Nursing Home, yeah. I picked up a really nice Peter Venkman action figure the other day. His Neutrona wand is mint, unbroken. Unfortunately, I saw it for a good price on eBay Australia. I purchased it. And actually wasn't until it turned up that I realised it didn't have the little ghost figure with it, but I'm sure that would be easy to replace. But I suppose the one toy line that I would love to have in my collection, which I don't have a single... I've had pieces in the past, and that's got to be the Mask toy line. I would love to get into Mask and start collecting, and potentially I will. At the moment, I'm focusing on Action Force. Obviously I've released part 1 of the new series where we've studied the Baron Ironblood and the enemy team with the Red Shadows. I believe, so here's an announcement for you guys. I think part 2 is going to be the SAS team. Okay, so that will hopefully be coming in within the next month, I'd say, possibly sooner, the next 2 to 3 weeks. Eric, you had a bunch of Mask stuff. Yeah, when I was a kid, I only had a little bit of Mask stuff. I had a lot more friends in the street who had Mask stuff, and you know, I think I borrowed a few toys from time to time, and I have had some of the toys in my collection over the years that have sort of come into the collection and have then moved on. Eric the Great, the first you don't have to be... sorry guys, that comment went over my head, I didn't understand it. David Osborne, I want all the SAS figures. I've got all the figures bar 1 and all the vehicles bar 1 at the moment, but there are some things in the post. Kevin T says Indy 5 will be a disaster. Yeah, my gut feeling is that it will be, but I really hope that it isn't. Lots of comments about Indiana Jones. Should we get this back onto Rambo, shall we? Analog Toys should have ended at Rambo 4. It was better than Last Blood. Yeah, I do believe the Rambo line should have ended with Rambo 4. I think that was a good end to the series. I really don't think they needed to come out with a 5th one, but perhaps Stallone needed the money. George Aitken, Rambo, half man, half missile system. That's actually a quote from one of the Coleco adverts for, was it the X-ray figure? So, I believe the Rambo toy line was popular. Certainly seemed to be, but perhaps it was overproduced because they are still very easy to get today. They're quite easy to get in original packaging. That was sort of the first wave, which was the 6 Force of Freedom figures, the 6 Savage figures. Then we had the Defender Jeep. We had the Savage Strike Cycle. This is another really cool toy. The Savage Strike Cycle, I actually like, in the back here, it opens up and you pull out a Gatling gun, a minigun. Like, that's just bonkers. I love it. It's almost something out of a James Bond movie. Yeah, so you had 12 figures in total in the first wave, which is... having a 12-figure lineup for action figures was quite common. Obviously, Star Wars, when it came out, the original line was 12 figures. I believe G.I. Joe was 12 carded, and then a few more figures came with vehicles. 12 was sort of standard, but that was standard for like 3 3/4 inch figures. I think it was very ambitious of Coleco to bring out 12 figures in the first wave in a scale of this size. So there was the 12 figures, there was these 2 vehicles, plus the Skyfire Assault Copter. I also have that, but because of the wingspan of the rotor blades, it doesn't fit on the shelf, so that's in storage downstairs. Although I didn't have that when I was a child. I didn't have the helicopter as a child. And then, of course, you have the enormous Savage Strike headquarters, what basically looked like a Vietnamese prisoner of war camp. An awesome play set. Lots and lots of loose parts. Like, it's very difficult to get complete. I was very lucky when I picked it up that I found it for the price I did. Where are we up to? Need some coffee, man. It's 7:30 in the morning here, Saturday morning, so... JoeFan22 says, it's interesting how the enemy got the headquarters. Yeah, it is interesting that Savage got the headquarters. But I think that was a good choice for the toy line, because, again, my sort of play patterns when I was a kid, although I didn't have the Savage Strike headquarters, I obviously really wanted it. But I would have basically... the way I would have set up my sort of play scenarios as a kid would have been to have all the Savage guys in the headquarters and have Rambo sort of try and infiltrate the base under cover of darkness. So, Lost and Wallace. I think the Rambo movies being so violent kept kids from seeing them in the 80s. So I'm not sure every kid had seen those movies. Yeah, I don't know if every kid had seen them. As I said, I did. I would have watched First Blood when I was 8. Probably Rambo Part 2 when I was 9 when it came out on VHS. I don't believe every other kid my age at the time, certainly not the kids I played with at school. Some of them saw it, some of them didn't. But everyone was aware of who Rambo was. And if you didn't watch it when you were 8 or 9, you certainly were watching it by the time you were 12. You know, back in the 80s, an 18 rating on a VHS cassette actually didn't mean that much. So they should make a crossover movie, Rambo and Commando versus everyone. Yeah, I don't know about that. Rambo can be a bit silly, but Commando is like silly on a whole other level. I don't think they would have meshed very well. First Blood is the least violent of the 5. Yeah, it's the least violent of the 5, but it's the best story, it's the best acting. It just created an amazing character, in my opinion. One of the favourite pieces in my collection, because I'm very fond of the Savage Strike Cycle, I got it when I was a kid. I have a photo of me opening this on, like unwrapping the present on Christmas morning. And this is mint sealed Savage Strike Cycle, never been opened. I love the box art. It just evokes so many memories from childhood for me. Look at the box art on that. It's just amazing. How cool is that? With Gripper manning the minigun and Mad Dog steering the Strike Cycle. So cool. First Blood gives us the character of John Rambo and his history. Yeah, it does. Don Draper says, I doubt Rambo can carry logs like John Matrix. I don't know. Let's see. Rocky certainly did some work with logs, I think in Rocky 4, in the training montage. JoeFan22, that is what you saw in, yeah. So JoeFan22, he's heard me tell the story before of the strike cycle, where basically the first time I ever went to a Toys R Us, it was in Cardiff in Wales. We'd been to Wales visiting some family for a long weekend. Went to a Toys R Us, first time I'd ever been to one, and there was just this wall of Rambo toys in there, incredible. And I really wanted to get something, my parents wouldn't let me get anything, and then we had like a 4 or 5 hour drive back to our hometown, and I was rummaging around for snacks in the back of the car, and actually sort of lifted up a blanket or something and saw the box Strike Cycle under the blanket. And I never said anything to my parents, I just sat there happy all the way home, knowing that I was probably going to get that for Christmas. So the Proton Pack, yes, that's what the Proton Pack and the Neutrona one. I don't know why I couldn't remember that. It's too early in the morning for me. Gaz is saying he's not sure if Matrix and Rambo would get along, so John Matrix from Commando, but Rambo and Dutch would have. Yes, certainly. Rambo and Dutch from Predator, I believe those two characters would have been a much better fit. John Kenny says, what about the movie Homefront that Stallone directed after picking up the rights, meaning to make another Rambo film but put Jason Statham in the part instead? I didn't know that. So I've seen the movie Homefront, but I didn't know that story behind it, that was intended to be another Rambo film. That was, I suppose Homefront kind of has the story, the bare bones of the story is similar to Last Blood. I don't know. David Osborne, you have an amazing display, mate. Love it. Thank you very much, David. George Aitken said Rambo had terrorists and John Matrix in Commando, he had Freddie Mercury. So, what was the villain's name in that? Bennett, played by Australian actor Vernon Wells, who was like the bad guy in every 80s movie, like Mad Max 2 and that kind of thing. And Eric's just quoted me there. The actor who played Bennett is an Australian actor. He was in The Road Warrior, Mad Max 2, yeah, and his name was Vernon Wells. He was also the villain in Inner Space too. Guys, shout out, are there any of these Savage figures you'd like to take a closer look at? I'll pick one of them up off the shelf and give you a better look. My personal favourite is Gripper. Gripper with his Uzi shield. Like, how many... The accessories, the number of accessories that came with these figures is just incredible. Gripper comes with no less than 5 Uzis. He's got 4 behind his shield that actually wouldn't protect him from very much, and another one in a low leg holster there. So I don't know how well the spring in this works, but this is another motorized backpack. So the shield folds up at the back, and then the wind-up mechanism's died after all these years. But basically, the Uzi shield would swing around to the front with 4 Uzis in there. My favourite figure from the line, aside from he's probably my favourite figure from the line, even more so than Rambo. I just like the design of that figure. It's great. A close up of Gripper's claw, yeah, for sure, Lawson. No worries. There you go, guys. Can you see that? Close up of Gripper's claw. Very cool. And the colour use really pops with the camouflage trousers, the black top, the yellow claw, the red beret. It just looks really good. Did Stallone approve of the Rambo toys? I have no idea. I really don't know. I don't know if if anyone's ever seen an old interview where he's been asked about it. I'd be very interested, but I don't know. Don Draper. I bet he has a hard time reloading. He probably does. That's probably why he carries 5 Uzis, so he doesn't have to keep reloading. He just throws an Uzi away and gets the next one. Alright. This is another piece in the collection that I really like, because this is the last metal lunchbox ever made for kids. If any of you have seen my Toy Histories episode on the Rambo toy line, you would have heard about this. I don't have a huge collection of vintage lunchboxes. I've got a few down here. Battlestar Galactica. I've got the ET one, but that one's missing the thermos. I don't often pick up lunchboxes if they're missing thermoses. I like this Buck Rogers one. I think this Buck Rogers one's excellent. And yeah, I tend to only pick up lunchboxes when they have the thermos included. So yeah, so ET, I need to get a thermos for that one. So I don't have many lunchboxes in my collection, but this is one of my favourites, not my absolute favourite. This does have the thermos, but it's just the cheap plastic thermos that came with them. And this was owned by a guy called Kit Barrick. I wonder if he watches the channel. Kit Barrick. Yeah, the last metal lunchbox ever made for kids. After that, they were sort of deemed too dangerous because kids could whack themselves around the head with them. So, following on from this, all lunchboxes, all licensed lunchboxes, became made of plastic. But the favourite lunchbox in my entire collection, I'm going to move some stuff around here. Whoops. This is my favourite lunchbox. Awesome. Indiana Jones and the Temple of Doom. My favourite lunchbox. Again, I have the thermos. Don't know why we're talking about lunchboxes now. I should have brought out the Rambo one, but that Buck Rogers lunchbox was neat. Yeah, the Buck Rogers lunchbox is really, really cool. I'm trying to think if I've got any others around. I've got a Legend of the Lone Ranger one there. I think that's missing a thermos as well, but that's pretty much the extent of my lunchbox collection, guys. I've got about 6. I don't know if any of you collect lunchboxes out there. There is one that I would love to get. Nothing, I didn't have it when I was a child or anything. I just think it looks absolutely awesome. I mean, I would love to get the 60s Batman one, but they're very rare, very expensive. But there's one from the 70s that doesn't go for too much money that I would love to add to the collection. And that is the lunchbox based on the 70s TV show Kung Fu, starring David Carradine. That's an awesome lunchbox. Definitely Google it and have a look at the picture if you haven't seen it before. I just think it's an awesome looking lunchbox. I love the design. Robert Justafan, did they make a Ghostbusters lunchbox? I can't say for sure. I would think that they did, but whether it was a metal lunchbox or plastic, I don't know. Probably, given the time frame, it was potentially... I'm pretty certain they didn't make a metal lunchbox, but there was probably a plastic one available. Banana Man, what did you think of Rambo 5? We've already discussed that in the channel. I just found it confusing. I didn't really know what the hell I'd just watched. Timothy Ward, they made a Kung Fu lunchbox. Yes, they did, mate. It's the outer edges are like a banana yellow. It's got a portrait of David Carradine on it, and Kung Fu sort of written in that traditional Chinese style of font. A very understated design, but just classic. And yeah, if there's one lunchbox I want to add to my collection, it is Kung Fu. Adrian Doyle, plastic, yeah. So I think are you talking about the Ghostbusters one? I'm pretty sure the Ghostbusters lunchbox was plastic. What else can we show you here? Oh, so Nomad was one of the figures that was dropped from the line for the second wave. So some of the figures had upgrades, like General Warhawk became Whip Action Warhawk. They introduced some new characters, but one of the figures that was dropped from the line was Nomad because This character was sort of deemed a bit of a stereotype and actually upset a lot of a large part of the Muslim community, so it was dropped from the second line. But so all of these figures came with an abundance of accessories. So this guy's got a I think that's a Tokarev pistol. He's got a couple of throwing knives, but every one of the characters also had some kind of a action feature weapon, and this guy's is pretty ridiculous. You just press a button on the side there, and this machine gun just flips up and pokes him in the eye. I think it's quite stupid. He just walks around with it on his chest, shooting at people. I think that's just ridiculous. Yeah. There's Nomad. You know, I can kind of understand why this maybe upset some Muslim groups, but I think just from a figure design, take away the chest plate, which I'm actually going to do that now. I'm going to remove this because I think he looks a lot better without it. Just drop one of his knives there. I just think the basic design of that figure is actually pretty cool. I like the way it looks. I like the desert camouflage trousers. I like the sculpting on the boots. These figures were very well sculpted. Unfortunately, they didn't have any articulation at the elbows, but the arms were given sort of poses to be able to hold their weapons. So we had knee joints, we had ball joints at the hips, the heads turned, the shoulders rotated, but nothing at the elbows. That one extra point of articulation would have just taken this toy line to a whole other level, but unfortunately we didn't get that. Edward Holbrook, is Rambo popular in the Middle East? No, I don't think so, Edward. I'm talking about, you know, Muslim communities who are in the United States at the time. Yeah, people weren't very happy with this this particular figure. They thought it was too much of a stereotype. I think it was more to do with the kind of stuff that was written on the file card for this figure. Yeah, so the Rambo figure is quite similar to G.I. Joe. They came with file cards. I don't know how well you can see this. But rather than being cut out of the card back, it was actually like a small plastic credit card size file card, which was double-sided. So one side described all the weapons that the figure and character came with, and the front side was basically a bio of the character. And yeah, I think it was more to do with the bio for Nomad as opposed to the actual figure itself as to what upset Muslim groups. Mad Dog. Like Mad Dog. This is a wacky idea for a character. So Mad Dog is an outlaw motorcycle biker kind of guy, a gang guy. So in the ranks of Savage, you've got this paramilitary guy Gripper, Nomad, the Middle Eastern terrorist. We've got a black ninja. We've got Sergeant Havoc, who's pretty cool, and I clearly think he is modelled off of the Russian henchman in Rambo Part 2. He looks very, very similar. Obviously, General Warhawk in his blue general's uniform. You know, so we've basically got 4 military guys. We've got a ninja and then an outlaw motorcyclist. But his action feature is pretty cool. He's got a fold-up shotgun on the side of his backpack, which when you press the button, it hits him on the leg. Let's see if we can get this to work. There we go. You see that? Oh, you didn't see that very well because of where I was holding it. Alright. So you've got a fold-up shotgun, and watch the way this flips out. It's pretty cool. Although, because of the articulation in his arms, he now can't pull the trigger because it's too far back. But a fancy little mechanism anyway. You know, I think Coleco probably should have done away with these fancy battle action accessories and just sold the figure with with the basic accessories, and they probably could have sold them at a lower price point, and maybe that they would have been a bit popular. I don't know if they were considered expensive back in the day, but and another style of weapon that was sort of afforded to so Rambo's RPG, Sergeant Havoc's sort of over-the-shoulder missile launcher, Cat had a grappling hook, Black Dragon's crossbow. Yeah, so there were a number of battle-action weapons that, rather than having sort of wind-up features or flip-out features, actually featured a pull string style. So Rambo's RPG rocket was spring-loaded. You could, I don't know where you see that. There's a string that you pull back. You see that? With a small ball on the end, and then you can fire the rocket, but you can't lose it. It's tied on by a string. I don't know why they chose to do that. I don't know. Maybe it was a cheaper option than having a missile that actually clipped in and potentially could be lost. But makes it difficult to display these, because what you have to do, you have to put the spring under pressure and then try and wrap the string around somehow so that it doesn't come out. That's how I display them anyway. I'll sort that out later. Alright, catch up with some comments. I wonder if the Rambo figure is in scale with over the top. Yeah, so they also, I didn't find this out till years and years later. I actually think it might have been on an episode of the Toy Hunter on the Travel Channel. I think he found one day a Lincoln Hawk action figure from over the top. Just crazy. Now I didn't know they ever made those figures. Vance Capley watching on my TV. Keep up the good work. Thanks, Vance. Adrian Doyle. After the Ken effect, they had to for kids. Oh, so you're talking about the Ken of Boba Fett, the missile? No, I'm gonna challenge that statement, because although these are spring loaded with string to stop them going too far, because if you take the missile launcher from the Defender 4x4 Jeep, we need a couple of missiles out of here. That can't have been a thinking, because these were quite deadly. So there's a large rubber-tipped missile, almost like a large caliber bullet, I suppose. Fits into the TOW launcher with a launch button on the top, and these go pretty far. They're fairly powerful. Certainly when you have a new launcher as well that hasn't had its spring depressed. Let's see. There we go. TOW launcher there. Another cool feature with this vehicle is the fact that it comes with a tripod where you can remove this from the vehicle and set it up on a tripod like that. Pretty cool. Alright guys, we're coming up on an hour, so we're going to be wrapping it up here fairly soon. My coffee's gone cold, so I'll have to zap it in the microwave after this. It's still about half full there. Alright, yeah, we've got about 7 minutes left, so fire me some questions and I'll see what I can answer for you. David Osborne, I agree, companies keep adding pointless accessories. The new Star Wars figures have that stupid oversized weapon, not in the movie. Like to get rid of them and sell all the figures for £5 instead of 10. 100%. We don't need these battle action accessories. I don't know whether they put them in so that they can justify bumping up the price, but I think they would sell a lot more if they did away with those battle action accessories, just had some very basic accessories and sold them for, you know, $3, $4 less, whatever it is. John Brewster, did I ever watch the cartoon series of Rambo? Not until later in life. It wasn't aired in the UK, well, not that I know of. I believe UK censorship for children's TV was quite stringent. We didn't even get G.I. Joe or the Action Force redub on TV. You could only get you can only watch those cartoons by purchasing them on VHS cassette. Wasn't aired on TV. When I was a kid, the cartoons I used to watch that were aired were... I used to watch Dungeons and Dragons. I loved that cartoon. I definitely watched He-Man and the Masters of the Universe. I watched a bit of Mask. I liked the Mask cartoon. That was aired in the UK. Spider-Man and His Amazing Friends I used to watch. Transformers, I'm not really a fan. Maybe caught a few episodes here and there. My sister watched She-Ra. No, that's about the extent of the cartoons I believe I watched when I was a child. Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles I did watch, but I wasn't really a kid then. I'd moved to Australia and I was in my first year of high school when I sort of first discovered that. It was probably out before then, but that's when I first discovered the cartoon. And it used to be on about 30 minutes after school finished, so I wouldn't tell anyone at school, but I'd jump on my bicycle, race home after high school, and run into the house, drop my backpack, and sit in front of the TV and watch the Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles. So... George Aitken, Ulysses 31. I have no idea what that is. Please educate me. Chris, learned a lot about this Rambo toy line. Cheers for the live stream. Have a great weekend all. Going toy hunting tomorrow. Best of luck with your toy hunting there, Chris. George Aitken, the Musket... Oh, yeah. D'Artagnan and the Musket Hounds. I did watch that cartoon. I believe that was a French cartoon that was redubbed. Maybe... I've got a feeling it was made by the same people who made Inspector Gadget. And there you go, Inspector Gadget was another cartoon I did watch. Along with the other traditional English cartoons like Banana Man and stuff like that. Badre Bali, loved Rambo as a kid. I had the action figure, had the VHS of the animated series pilot, and owned the 4-film DVD collection. Excellent. David Osborne, how many 90s to 2000 Action Man figures do you own? I owned a load as a kid until they stopped making them in the early 2000s. I don't own any of them. Not one. When they relaunched Action Man this time, so Hasbro had acquired the license because they didn't directly purchase Palitoy. Palitoy, I believe, was sold to Tonka or Kenner Parker. I don't know, but it was eventually acquired by Hasbro and along with all the rights. So around 1993, they relaunched Action Man. I think I was first aware of it around 1994. At the time, I was 17 and just gone into full-time employment. I was actually in the Australian Army. And for the first couple of years that was out, I was purchasing everything. And then over the years, I've sold it on at toy shows or whatever. I will never sort of collect the 90s Action Man line again. Just not for me. Gaz, what was a toy line you would like to have made? So you're talking about a toy line that was never made, but I would have loved to have seen made. I would have loved to have seen action figures from Big Trouble in Little China. But probably even more so than that, when I was a kid, I would have absolutely loved a set of action figures from the Chinese, was it Chinese or Japanese TV show Monkey. I loved that TV show growing up. Monkey with his with Pigsy, Sandy and Trippy Tucker. I would have loved action figures of those characters from that TV show. Guys, if you don't know what Monkey is, do yourself a favour and look it up. Did you watch Mysterious Cities of Gold? The name's familiar, but my memory, I don't remember. D says Reaction made Big Trouble figures. Yeah, but I didn't really like them. I think the figures could have been a lot better than that. Do I have the Love Boat figures or MASH figures? No, I don't have either. I don't think I would ever collect Love Boat figures. I would certainly pick up MASH figures if I saw them at a toy show for a reasonable price. Shintaro the Samurai was a big hit in Australia. I'm not aware of that. George Aitken, the tune was catchy but I didn't like it. Are you talking about the Monkey there, George? Because I loved Monkey. I watched that religiously when that show was on TV. Would have loved to have figures from the movie Escape from New York. Yes, I would have loved to have had a Snake Plissken action figure when I was a child. I would have loved that. Edward Holbrook, is this the whole Rambo line you're showing? No. So I've got all the figures from the first wave, the vehicles and the large playset. Which, if you want to see everything that was released, Edward, go into my the video library on the Analog Toys channel and look up the Toy Histories episode where we discussed the Rambo toy line, because there was a wave 2 that came out with a few additional characters and some other even rarer vehicles. I don't have any of the second wave stuff. It's very rare, it's quite expensive, but it is covered in that sort of documentary feature, the Toy Histories episode on Rambo. So that will sort of give you an understanding of the entire Rambo toy line, which is pretty incredible. Michael Mercy, good to see you. Any plans on getting some of the Joxer exclusives? I would love to, Michael, but those Joxer exclusives are very hard to get, very rare. I would love to get a few of the Desert Brigade, where they took a lot of these figures and re-released them in sort of desert camouflage. I would love that. For anyone who wants to see or knows what Michael Mercy is talking about with Joxer, Joxer was a South American toy company, I think in Argentina, that did a number of awesome variations of the Rambo toys. I've also done a video feature on that. I think I called it Rambo Mission Argentina. So again, you can look that up in our video library on the channel, and take a journey into the weird and wonderful world of South American Rambo action figure variations. Better A Bob, finally made it to an Analog Toys live stream while it was live. Hello all, hope everyone having a good day or evening. Thank you, mate, that's awesome. Michael Mercy, Rambo Wrestling Federation. Yeah, alright, we're on an hour, we're going to wrap it up here. I'm just going to close by saying, if I told you that Rambo and the Force of Freedom themed wrestling was really popular in South America, when I first discovered some TV clips of this, it blew my mind. I ended up spending an entire weekend watching Rambo and the Force of Freedom themed wrestling. If you don't believe me that's true, check out the video where I discuss the Rambo South American variations, because I talk about Rambo themed wrestling. It's absolutely bonkers. Do yourself a favour, get educated, go and watch some of it. It's just crazy. Alright guys, yeah, we're on the hour. Mrs. Analog Toys has got the day off today, so I promised her I'd only keep this to an hour. And our son's had a sleepover, so we got the day to ourselves. Don't really know what we're going to do. Maybe I might take her out for lunch. Let's see. Alright guys, thank you all for tuning in. I hope you enjoyed this. I hope you enjoyed learning a little bit more about Coleco's Rambo toy line. Our next sort of feature video or edited video will drop tomorrow. It's already been done, so for those of you who saw the Z-Force ATC in the gift box from George Aitken about 2 weeks ago, I filmed a restoration video. It's available on Patreon now. It's been on there since yesterday. That will drop in around 24 hours. You guys in the States will get that video on Saturday night. And other than that, I've got a couple more videos I'm working on. I'm hoping to shoot another big feature video this weekend, and then just depending on how long the edit takes as to when it'll drop on YouTube. But there'll be another. So we've got the restoration video coming tomorrow, and then another big video coming later in the week. Alright, cheers everyone. I hope you have a wonderful weekend. Once again, happy birthday to Tors. It's his 5th birthday today. And that's the son of my good brother, my Joseph, who normally moderates these live streams, but couldn't make it today for a very good reason, because it's Tor's birthday. So another happy birthday to you. Have a great weekend, everyone, and I'll see you in the next video. Cheers. Ooh, what a disaster.